Dragons. Mythical, wild, scaly, sometimes fire-breathing, sometimes flying, sometimes swimming, all depending on which part of the world you're in. These serpentine beasts are imagined and represented in nearly every culture around the world. Why is that? Many of us have been reading and watching tales unfold about knights who bravely defend their castles and homelands against a ferocious fire-breathing beast, or groups of adventurers seeking treasure who must overcome a dragon in order to attain it. And now we even have stories unfolding about befriending and training dragons. The list goes on. But we have been able to observe how stories of dragons have evolved and shifted over time and space, but nonetheless remain significant to us and our psyches. Carl Jung discussed the symbolic significance of dragons in our lives as a representation of the primal, regressive tendencies of the unconscious, which need to be overcome in order to complete the hero's journey. Often, this energy can be seen as the unconscious, which can submerge and prevent us from developing awareness and independence. The dragon, in essence, is a primordial symbol of the unknown and of possibility. Carl Jung said, "Only one who has risked the fight with the dragon and is not overcome by it wins the treasure hard to attain. They alone have a genuine claim to self-confidence, for they have faced the dark ground of their self and thereby have gained themselves. This experience gives them faith and trust." Dragons, though imaginary, can be linked to both snakes and lizards. This means something to us psychologically. What if dragons are not meant to be discovered outside of ourselves, but rather inside? In fact, in neuroscientist Paul MacLean's The Triune Brain, he lines out that we have 3 brains under one mind. He says that there is the Homo sapien brain in the neofrontal cortex, which rules intellectual and executive functions, verbal language, as well as conscious thought and self-awareness. Then he says we have the mammalian brain in the limbic system, which rules somatosensory and emotional experiences, as well as implicit memory. And finally, we have the reptilian brain in the basal ganglia brainstem, which rules instinctive responses. It is referred to as the most primitive part of the brain, tied to our survival instincts. Can you guess which part of the brain your dragon lives? The reptilian brain is vital. It is largely to thank for hundreds of thousands at least years of human survival on Earth. It is responsible for basic instincts like thirst, hunger, reproduction, territory, and aggression. The very instincts necessary to remain alive. However, because it functions through procedural memory, what we typically refer to as muscle memory, the memory that never forgets how to ride a bike or how to breathe, for example, it can be limited when it comes to developing new neural pathways in any given situation, meaning to think creatively. This means that although it is a very necessary part of the brain, if left underdeveloped, it can also be limiting in the sense that a dragon who relies on its capacity to use procedural memory to keep you safe and alive can be exceedingly terrified of change and can use fear to hold you back from change and growth. Sometimes the fear or control can be masked under care. We see this on many levels, as an example of the devouring mother, which is an energy that seeks to keep people dependent. We can see this play out in politics, in schools, in industry, in homes and friendships and relationships, and especially in the mind. But when it comes to dealing with our own personal inner dragon, we must keep awareness that our dragon loves us tremendously, and that it does not want anything unexpected to happen to us because of possible danger. But logically, perhaps through the Homo sapien brain, we know that a life without risk is no life at all, and not all fear is necessarily valid. And if we consider ourselves as participants of our own hero's journey, which is to become yourself, then we must accept that freedom must be earned over and over by discovering that we can take wise action, accept reality, adapt, and make conscious, skillful choices, as Carl Jung said. Facing and overcoming your dragon is more like accepting and integrating your dragon. So you are not killing any part of you, especially not something as necessary as your reptilian brain. But you can accept, nurture, and make mature the dragon, that it transforms from the hero's adversary into the hero's mighty protector and guide. We can mature our dragon from its place of primal desires, fear, and destruction into a place of wisdom, courage, and protection. However, it is no easy feat. There's a reason most depictions of dragon tales involve a perilous quest into dangerous unknowns in order to achieve the main objective. Your mind is a shape-shifting landscape that it takes patience, careful attention, courage, and a willingness to doubt and learn to cultivate. And we must understand that in order to have our own dragon submit to us, we must become someone worth submitting to. In this, a transfer of authority would occur, that you can stop being an unconscious slave to the dragon and its reactivity, and instead gain its trust and be its authority, so that the whole of you is aiming in the right direction. What this process actually is nurturing nature. The dragon is natural. It's animalistic in its instincts, and it knows how to survive. However, we human beings have the capacity to nurture nature, including our own inner nature. And therefore, through the nurturing, we can elevate nature to meet a healthier standard. Rudolf Steiner tells us that it is helpful to stop thinking of things in terms of good and bad, but rather to measure things by degree of health. This is an especially beneficial frame when it comes to measuring ourselves and others, and keeps us from harsh judgments and stagnant conclusions. If we determine a part of ourselves let's say our dragon, as bad or even non-existent, then our dragon will feel rejected from us and would likely not cooperate with our aims. We will be outcast as a necessary part of ourselves from ourselves. But as Carl Jung has taught us, any part of ourselves that we deny or repress does not die, but instead grows stronger and sicker by the day, guiding our unconscious behaviors. By not being aware of having a shadow, you declare a part of your personality to be non-existent. Then it enters the kingdom of the non-existent, which swells up and takes enormous proportions. If you get rid of the qualities you don't like by denying them, you become more and more unaware of what you are. You declare yourself more and more non-existent, and your devils will grow fatter and fatter. If we can develop the capacity to see ourselves as we truly are, and everything we are capable of in the entire spectrum of health and illness, without denying or demonizing it, we can accept it. From here, there is a connection, and with connection, there is a possibility for growth and greater health to permeate from our own instruction and inner presence. One of my very personal favorite dragon scenes is from Avatar: The Last Airbender in Season 3, Episode 13, where we see Zuko and Aang come together to perform a dragon dance. For context, Aang is deemed the Avatar, who is a master of all 4 elements: air, fire, earth, and water. And he is the keeper of balance between the elemental nations. Zuko is a firebender and original enemy to Aang and his mission. This scene between them feels significant because of their history. Zuko is the prince of the Fire Nation and the son of Fire Lord Ozai, who seeks to capture the Avatar in order to ensure the reign and power of the Fire Nation over all other nations. It is Zuko's plan to trap Aang and bring him to his father in order to restore his honor in his father's eyes. But through a series of events, Zuko warms to Aang and his friends as they warm to him, and essentially surrenders his quest to overcome the Avatar, and chooses instead to become allied to the Avatar and his mission to restore peace and balance between all nations. This union of friendship between Aang and Zuko is significant and quite literally world-shifting. It is a union of opposites. A perfect example of 2 characters with contrasting missions who come together into a singular aim in which they are cooperating. Marie-Louise France said, "If we stay with the tension of opposites long enough, sustain it, be true to it, we can sometimes become vessels within which the divine opposites come together and give birth to a new reality." This is what I contemplate when Aang and Zuko perform the dragon dance and receive judgment from the dragons themselves. It was a demonstration of harmony between opposites and the birth of new possibilities between them, which otherwise could have stayed impossible. Who can say if Aang would have ever achieved his goal to bring balance between the nations without Zuko by his side? Or if Zuko himself would have uncovered his true destiny to become a fair and cooperative ruler of the Fire Nation by securing the well-being of the avatar instead of trying to destroy him. Because Aang and Zuko were both willing to accept and sit with the discomfort of their differences in order to meet and merge them, balance was eventually restored not only between them, but all nations. As Carl Jung said, the greater the tension, the greater is the potential. Great energy springs from a correspondingly great tension of opposites. And this is what the symbol of the Ouroboros represents. A serpent dragon eating its own tail, demonstrating a continuous cycle of destruction and rebirth, which is a cycle of transformation. This symbol aids to place us in a process-oriented mindset, and to accept that there's always room to grow and transform. And most of all, that transformation happens through an embrace with the other. That in embracing that which is unknown or different, new pathways, possibilities, and potentials become available to and through us. This is how we become ourselves, by integrating our contradictions, marrying our own internal tensions, so that there is no longer contrast between what we think, how we feel, and how we behave. We continuously become ourselves through this process of accepting the truth of who we are, integrating internal opposites, and thereby creating new worlds within and outside of ourselves over and over again. For everything we know, there's always so much more that we don't. This is true about the world at large and of ourselves as well. Bringing careful awareness to our reptilian brains and developing a relationship with our inner dragon is how we can meet our personal hero's journey. I find it so interesting and suitable that we now live in a time where the culture is producing more and more stories about befriending and taming dragons, in contrast to the fear and slaying that permeated dragon stories in previous epochs. May our confrontation with our dragon be a soft and patient beckoning. May we, through our choices and claim sovereignty, become someone that our own inner dragon is willing to submit to. May we be trustworthy. May we be willing to take on difficult tasks for our own greater good. May we stay true to ourselves and our values. May we take our responsibilities to heart. May we be ourselves, tell the truth, and try our best. Looking your dragon in the eyes can feel like staring straight into the abyss, into the dark, into everything not known, where the potential for danger, destruction, fear lies waiting, alongside where the potential for courage, wonder, understanding, growth, and wisdom waits. From judgment comes discernment, and from pain comes wisdom, and from the dark comes new elements of you to claim and carry forward into the world. If we engage in the process of whatever is occurring within us, no matter how painful or joyful or anything in between, then we allow ourselves the space and freedom to evolve the process and to transform through it, to become more of ourselves on the other side, so that The dragon that frightens and limits you becomes a trusted part of yourself that protects you as you carry forward to take calculated risks and humble new beginnings. The dragon that feels all-encumbering becomes the avenue to freedom. The dragon that breathes the fire of destruction and birth has the very same aim of health and wholeness that you have for yourself and moves accordingly. And you hold fast and strong and beckon sweet and soft, and you tame your monsters and they become your friends. And with that, I will now leave you with a poem. I live and burn. Dragons appear to me in smoke. My name is the flame, my tongue on fire. I hold fast the darkened hush in one ear, in the other the golden lyre. Between them there's a humming, a split, a message seething from the fracture. The sacred heart will fall apart and blaze itself in rapture. And I am only haunted by everything I've ever wanted. But those phantoms are my friends. Together we ignite, break free, look up, and bend the knee. Eyes adjusted to shadow see that maybe the dragon was never the enemy. Maybe the dragon is me.